WANE-TV and WANE.com present an essential ingredient in the democratic process. In 1 week, citizens of Fort Wayne will vote for the city's next mayor. Tonight, from the campus of IPFW inside the Reinhardt Music Center and the beautiful Hour Auditorium, the 2011 Fort Wayne Mayoral Debate.
Good evening and welcome to the beautiful Hour Performance Hall on the campus of IPFW. WANE-TV is proud to partner with the Mike Dowd Center for Indiana Politics for this live 1 hour debate between the three candidates for Fort Wayne Mayor. And good evening to you. I'm Mark Mellinger.
And I'm Heather Ahrendt. We appreciate you joining in tonight. Mark and I will serve as moderators for the debate. Before we get any further, we'd like to introduce the candidates to you. Incumbent Mayor Tom Henry, Republican challenger and former County Councilwoman Paula Hughes, and independent businessman Haley Ahrendt.
So those are the candidates. Now let's go over the rules for tonight's debate. Very simple. We're going to ask a question, then each candidate will have a maximum of 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer that question. After that, by the way, the question does have to be germane to what we ask. And then after that, each candidate will get to ask one of his or her opponents a follow-up, and then the opponent will have 45 seconds to answer that follow-up question.
We have no opening statements for tonight. We'd like to get straight to those questions. We did a coin toss before the program tonight, and the first question will go to Haley Ahrendt. What is your philosophy on how much debt the city of Fort Wayne should carry and how the city should use debt for leverage?
I think the city is okay with the amount of debt that it's carrying right now, but I do believe that we need to control what we are spending, and we have to be careful not to create new debt, especially in the economy that we're in.
Paula Hughes, the same question for you.
You know, the fact is that the city of Fort Wayne is $500 million in debt, and that is too much. That is billion with a B, and it's made up of three parts. There's the civil city, there's city utilities, and there's what we owe for pensions for our public safety officers. I think we need to pay it all down, and I think the most appropriate thing to do is make sure that we can live on a cash basis. Governments are not that different from households on a fixed income. We've got to make sure that our city's debt is manageable, that it's not restricting our ability to do things going into the future. One of the problems with the city's debt right now is the fact that it cuts off our ability to do projects. We get $13 million a year in seeded funds. $12 million of it goes to debt service. That is too much money. So no, I don't think that's an appropriate amount, and I don't think you would either. Thank you.
Mayor Henry.
I just wish that Washington, D.C. could take some lessons from the city of Fort Wayne, because we have a balanced budget. We have a flat budget. We have a budget that paid off $12 million of our debt this year. We're going to pay off $16 million next year, and 40% of our debt will be paid off by the year 2015. Our city is in one of the best financial shapes of any city in the country. As a matter of fact, the Journal-Gazette itself this summer said that per capita we have one of the lowest debt ratios in the entire country.
Thank you. Mr. Ahrendt, you may ask a question to one of the other candidates, and please keep it germane to the topic of city debt.
Actually, I'd like to pass.
Okay. Paula Hughes.
Tom, you have said repeatedly that only 1/3 of the city's debt counts, only the civil city count. I would like to know which part of the city's debt you're not going to pay off and why.
Now, Paula, you know that 1/3 of our debt is city debt, $180 million. You yourself said this summer that $100 million of it wasn't the city's debt, but in fact a state obligation. The rest of it is city utilities, a utility owned by the city of Fort Wayne, but the taxpayers are not responsible for that. The Journal-Gazette itself, in July of this year, said that half of that entire debt that you talk about is city debt, not the city utilities debt, and not the state obligation, which you yourself admitted it was.
And now you may ask a question of one of the other candidates.
I have a question of Haley. Haley, you're a businessman.
Correct.
and you're familiar with income expenses and the like. Do you feel that the current revenue streams that the city is getting, income tax, property tax, and so on, is sufficient to run the city?
Tom, I believe that if we raise taxes, we're going to discourage people from coming. And normally when I'm brought into a business, it's because they need help restructuring a little bit. So I'm always looking for something to take out of a budget that maybe isn't needed, and that we need to look at things in a new light. And so I'm always constantly looking outside the box, and if we can do it just a little cheaper without compromising service, then that's the way I think that we ought to do it.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to the next question, and for this one, we'll start with Paula Hughes. What bold initiatives or investments should the city take on to ensure we have the talent and research capacities to compete in the 21st century?
Thank you, Mark. You know, one of the things that just kind of set the table for tonight, I'm a woman of faith and a woman of family. And the things we should be talking about tonight are those big picture issues. What do we expect from our leaders? What do we expect from our mayor? And I would submit that we're on a community we've been on a Sunday afternoon stroll for years. We're just kind of meandering along. But other communities have realized that it is Monday morning. It is time to get back to work. And I want to see that for Fort Wayne. I want us to reach our potential. There is so much opportunity for us, for Fort Wayne as a community and for the region of Northeast Indiana. We can learn the lessons from other communities and put them in place in this community. We've got great innovation, a wonderful entrepreneurial spirit. We know that. We live and work. I see greatness in the city of Fort Wayne. And I think we deserve a mayor who sees that greatness too. When you listen tonight, you need to listen to those plans for the future. Not just the same old, same old. How are we going to transform our city and take it into the future? Thank you.
And now we will go to Tom Henry.
The greatest asset that the city of Fort Wayne has are our children. We must spend every hour of every day preparing our children to face the challenges of the future. That's why I have an ongoing relationship with Wendy Robinson from Fort Wayne Community Schools. I meet regularly with all the superintendents. I meet regularly with the chancellor at Ivy Tech, IPFW, University of St. Francis, Indiana Tech, all in preparation for setting the stage for our children. I recently was able to put together an employer-educator summit where educators and our employers got together and discussed the needs and the wants and the desires of our current employers and what the jobs of the future are going to be. And they talked to the educators and talked to them about how they could massage their curriculums to better meet those needs. Our challenge right now is to make sure that our children have a future for them in the educational arena that will meet the future demands.
Haley Ahrendt.
I'm also concerned with the children of Fort Wayne, because I don't want to straddle the children with the debt that we incur with projects that I don't think is necessarily appropriate for the times. And I don't think, I think that when we get in subjects like the light lease fund money, that we're going to use it to pay off debt instead of saving it for a rainy day. And I'm also concerned about the children and what we're teaching them when they're watching how adults act when they're applying for the most important job in the city, which is this job. I would like to see it brought back to a time when everyone got along and did the best for what was best for the city and not just best for our parties. That's it.
I'm going to deviate from the format before we get to a follow-up. I don't think I heard one bold investment or initiative in any of those answers. The question was, what bold initiatives or investments should the city take on to ensure that we have the talent and research that we need to compete in the 21st century? Don't take a minute 15. I'll still let you have your follow-ups, but briefly, 40 or 50 seconds. We'll start with you again, Paula Hughes.
You know, one thing that could transform us as a community is a stronger partnership between business and the educational system, and not just the high schools, but higher ed. One of the things we hear a lot from our industry clusters, defense communications, advanced manufacturing, is that they need more higher education degrees. They need PhDs and master's degree programs right here in Fort Wayne. They have to send their employees out of town to get the degrees that they need for them to do the work. So if we actively partner in Northeast Indiana and with our legislators and make sure that we get the degrees at IPFW, at Indiana Tech, and make sure that we can educate the people the way they need to be to provide those jobs. That's something that's not happening right now, and I'd like to see that happen.
Mayor Tom Henry, bold investments and initiatives for the future.
With all due respect, I thought that's exactly what I just said. I worked very hard on getting the educators and the employers together to create some synergy between the two, because right now we have too many young people who are getting degrees in areas where you don't have any jobs. At the same time, our employers have jobs that we don't have anybody with the skill set. So we're getting them together to create a synergy so that the degrees in the future, that the knowledge in the future is relevant to our community. So I think that's what I just said a few minutes ago, and I think that is a rather bold step since I was the only mayor ever to do that.
Sure, and I was, to clarify, I was talking about bold initiatives or investments, new ones to take on in the future. Your answer is clearly that you're going to build on what you've started. That's legitimate. Okay. Haley Ahrendt.
Well, I'll get more bold this time. One of my initiatives are to go around with the small business that are already here, who are struggling, and I want to work with them to help them better themselves, because they're being taxed and they're not being offered anything by the city as far as programs. And if they are, they can't find where they're at. And I also think that we need to attract some jobs to the city for people who are not college bound, because we have some kids who are not college bound and they shouldn't have to move or work for minimum wage. So we need another harvester or some sort of manufacturing company to come to town.
Now time for the follow-ups, and Paula Hughes gets to ask the first one.
Mayor Henry, one of the things that you said was that you believe the education initiative is a bold initiative. I would submit that you have multiple times spent thousands of dollars and asked the community for input on programs, on what to do with the light lease money, on what to name a building. We know how that turned out. On whether or not we should do casino and gambling in this community. And you've ignored those recommendations each time. So let me ask you, Mayor, what would you do? What is your idea?
Paula, I think you know that I have probably one of the most transparent administrations that this city has seen in quite some time. We make ourselves available to our citizens on a regular basis. I have mayor's night in, I have mayor's night out. I walk neighborhoods, I walk business corridors. We have an enhanced 311 communication system. We have SmartGov now so that all of you can communicate with the city over the internet. There's very little more we can do, I think, to be any more transparent. So I find a little bit of fault with that criticism, because I think we're doing a wonderful job in making sure that the needs and the viewpoints of the citizens of Fort Wayne are being met.
Mayor Henry, your follow-up.
I have a question of Haley. Haley, you went to school here in Fort Wayne, and we have a number of colleges now. We're blessed to have a number of colleges and universities and technical training centers and apprenticeships and the like. Are you satisfied with the broad range of post-secondary education that we have in our community?
You know, there is one area, and I think they're getting ready to cover it, and that's doctorate degrees. Mm-hmm. And so that's one area that I think that once that hits the city, that's going to be nice. And I'm actually going to enroll in Tryon University, probably in the spring, because I want to take a class since they put one here in Fort Wayne.
Thank you.
And Haley Ahrendt, your opportunity for a follow-up.
I'll pass.
Okay.
All right, our next question will begin with Mayor Tom Henry. Spell out exactly how Fort Wayne should use the $77 million from the city light lease settlement, and please be specific.
I don't think there's any question that in Fort Wayne, Indiana, understanding our current economy, jobs trump everything. We need to take that money and look at opportunities to have employers locate in our community. We need to attract new employers into Fort Wayne, Allen County. We need to take the existing businesses who are here and allow them the opportunity to not only stay here, but to grow those businesses. So more than anything, I think the vast majority of the legacy money should be spent on job attraction, job retention, and job growth.
Okay, thank you. Haley Ahrendt.
I believe that we should put a freeze on spending any of the light lease fund money for at least 12 months until people lose the mentality that it's a lottery winning. And once we do that, there's things that we need to do that has, with the community, it should be the community's money. I do not believe we should build a park with it. I don't believe that we should pay off debt with it. And after taking suggestions from the community of what to do with the money from there on, that's where the chip should lie. But as far as giving it to small businesses to start up, that may be an option, but we should not be the banks for a small business, because if they fail, then we've lost the money.
All right, Paula Hughes.
Well, I've been very clear about this since early this year. I think we need to pay down our city's debt. Again, I go back to the fact that $500 million is too much debt load for a city the size of Fort Wayne to carry. And when you pay down the debt, you free up cash on an annual basis to do projects. Mayor Henry talks about jobs, but frankly, right now, we don't have the cash resources available to attract industry to Fort Wayne proper, not Allen County, because we're spending all that money on debt service. So we've got to free up the cash. So on a year-over-year basis, we have cash available to do projects. That's what happens. In your own homes, in your lives, when your mortgage and your credit cards are out of control and you get an inheritance from your grandmother, do you go out and do a new project? Do you take a luxury vacation? Do you buy a new house, buy a new car? No. If you're smart, what you do is you pay off that existing debt, so you have money going into the future. That's what we need to do with this, and I would challenge everybody in this room to think about the best future for the city of Fort Wayne. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Henry, your chance now for a follow-up question.
I have a question of Haley. Haley, you mentioned investing the money. Mm-hmm. Would you have any objection, or let me rephrase that if I may, as far as investing it in financial institutions, would you want to put it in just one bank or one institution, or would you spread it out over a number?
I would spread it out amongst local banks. Okay. And did that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Well, I want it to be clear that it should be local banks.
I'm sure all the banks locally would love you for that.
And I'm sure they're all sitting up paying attention to what I just said, right?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ahrendt, your chance to ask a question of either candidate.
I have a question for Paula. Paula, you realize that some of the debt that we're talking about is from Mayor Helmke in his administration when he annexed the land in both the north and south end of town. And so that did create a lot of debt for the city. So you can agree with that, correct?
No.
You don't think that did?
That's not my answer.
That's not your answer?
Are you done?
Oh, because I've lived in the north and south end, and I know what it feels like to live in an annexed piece of land, and yeah, I'd like you to answer that.
Well, first of all, Mayor Helmke had an active partner in Mayor Tom Henry on the city council to do those annexations. So it's not just Paul Helmke. There was a very complicit city council that was a part of those annexations. And I want to say that the debt that is being carried has grown more than double in the last 8 years. Helmke has been out of office for 12. Mm-hmm. So the bulk of the debt is actually from the last 2 administrations, including Mayor Tom Henry. The debt grew by over $100 million in the last 4 years alone. So that does not go back in the past. I'm not sure about your reference to Paul Helmke. The facts are that right now we've got a tax and spend administration. We have an administration that believes that they should raise taxes. Tom Henry proposed a tax increase 6 weeks ago, but not to pay down the debt. The debt's gone up by $100 million.
All right, and Paula Hughes, your chance to ask a question of either candidate regarding the light lease money.
I would go back to Mayor Henry with the question I had previously, just a reiteration because I didn't hear an answer in it. You know, you formed a committee, you put a website together and asked people to submit ideas for the legacy task force. What to do with the light lease money, community involvement. It sounds wonderful, and it is wonderful when you manage it properly. People submitted over 1,000 different ideas. They spent hundreds of hours putting that together. And then the committee itself spent another hundreds of hours working out what the ideas were, and now you're saying that you want to spend the money on jobs. Why did you put the community through all those paces when you didn't care what they thought in the first place?
Well, Paul, if you had been talking to the members of the committee, as I have been, they've indicated to me, and we had 15 wonderful people on that committee, good cross-section of our city, but they confided in me that a lot of these suggestions, recommendations from the community as a whole dealt with economic development as an umbrella concept. And much of what they are going to recommend to us ultimately will fall under an economic development umbrella. Obviously, jobs, job creation, job attraction, job retention all fall underneath that.
All right, on to the next question, and this one will be directed to Haley Ahrendt first. The three of you are all running for the chance to be the executive of this city for the next 4 years. Name another current government executive in this country whose leadership you would like to pattern your own after for the next 4 years, and explain why.
In current?
Current.
Or past? Current.
Current.
Oh, man. That's a tough one. Oh, Mark, you stumped me, because currently, I don't like just one person. I like ideas of different people. I like something of Mitch Daniels. I think he's done some great things. I also like Mitch Harper locally. I think he's done some great things. Councilman Didier also. But to nail down one politician, that's hard, because to be honest with you, I don't like what one politician 100% any of them. And so that's my honest answer. I mean, that's a tough one for me. You stumped me.
And to be clear, remember, councilmen are not executives, technically. All right, okay. Next, Paula Hughes.
Yes, you know, I'm very fortunate to have the endorsement of our governor, Mitch Daniels. He's actually coming to town tomorrow, hosting a luncheon in my honor, and I am proud of that. And I'm proud to live in the state of Indiana where Mitch Daniels is governor. We are in a much better financial state than we were 8 years ago. There's nobody that can deny that. People are coming to the state of Indiana because of the work that Mitch Daniels has done as an administrator. We've seen jobs coming, not to Fort Wayne, but to the rest of Indiana from Illinois. Fort Wayne seems to be pushing jobs the other direction, but that's another conversation. But Mitch Daniels' work and his fiscal responsibility has been key to the success of the state of Indiana, and I think it's a great pattern to follow. I've also been blessed with the endorsement of area mayors who came together and again hosted an event for my campaign, but I want to partner with them. They have said they like to partner with me. There's so much we can do in this region. There's lots of good ideas out there. We just have to make sure that we implement them right here in Fort Wayne.
And to Mayor Tom Henry.
I am going to name an executive that perhaps many of you are unfamiliar with. But he's an outstanding individual, one with the greatest level of integrity and character. It happens to be the mayor of Kokomo, Indiana. His name is Greg Goodnight. Greg City had fallen on very hard times because of Delco Ramey and other plants that had closed down. He had storefronts barricaded up, empty homes, factories that had closed down, but he didn't give up. He went back and he kept fighting for his citizens, fighting for the fact that his citizens deserved to stay where they were and to get the best possible jobs that could be available to them and their families. He did not want them to pack up and move, and he fought for them. And that's what inspired me to continue fighting for all of you with the I&M lease and with a number of other organizations in town who have decided to stay.
And now each of you has the opportunity for a follow-up. We'll start with Haley Ahrendt.
I'll pass again.
Okay. Paula Hughes.
I'm going to pass as well. Thank you.
And Mayor Henry.
Well, I'll pass on this one, too.
Okay.
All right, the next question will begin with Paula Hughes. The Public Safety Academy in Southeast Fort Wayne is costing taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. What deadline would you set for this project to be self-sustaining, and what would you do to guide it to that place?
Thank you, Heather. I did a press conference a couple of weeks about this. When the Public Safety Academy was first envisioned, it was a public-private partnership. The public end of it was gathering the resources to build the building. We have a beautiful $27 million facility out there, and we seem to be focusing on the shell rather than what's going on the inside. That was always meant to be a regional center for public safety training, to go beyond what we do day in, day out for public safety for this community. Unfortunately, within months after taking office, Mayor Henry disbanded the foundation that was in place, didn't follow through on the contract. We had private sector business owners, Joe Ruffalo and Pete Eshelman, great men, successful businessmen, who were willing to put their names on the line to make that organization successful. And I think we need to go back to that model because it was working. They had pledged their resources to make sure that the Public Safety Academy was not a drain on the city of Fort Wayne. The fact that it is costing the city of Fort Wayne over $500 million, again, $500 million on the Public Safety Academy. It was never supposed to be a burden to us. We need to go back to the original model, restore the foundation, and re-enter in a public-private partnership. Thank you.
Mayor Henry.
It's funny how you said the foundation concept was working. The Public Safety Academy was in operation roughly a year before I took office, and this foundation that was supposed to be in place only raised several $1,000s in an entire year, and that was donated by one of the board members. The business approach, utilizing the foundation to support a public safety academy, just doesn't work. There are not foundations out there who will give money to the training of police and firefighters. Their money goes to the arts and to the sciences and to cultural events. So what we decided to do was instead go to the state of Indiana. We just met recently with the budget agency of the state and talked to them about designating the Public Safety Academy in Fort Wayne as a certified public training academy for all of northern Indiana. Right now, everybody goes down south. And we're currently in negotiations with the FBI to certify us as an FBI training center as well. That's the model. It's a government model, partnered with educational facilities. Together we can make the PSA work.
Haley Ahrendt.
The facility was built with a build it and they will come, but they never did come. And that's part of the problem, is that when we do a project in Fort Wayne, we don't think it all the way through and look for long-term cost analysis, and we don't look for long-term uses for the building. So I don't know if we should necessarily privatize it, maybe sell it, or utilize it in another fashion. But obviously we can't keep paying for something that we don't, that's not utilized to its potential.
All right, Paula Hughes, you may begin with a follow-up question.
I think I'll ask Haley a question this time. Haley, this is related to public safety, but going beyond the role of the academy. Currently, none of our public safety officials are operating in contract. The Patrolman Benevolence Association has been without a contract for 3 years, and the FOP has not been able to negotiate their contract successfully because the city administration won't move on it. Do you think that's an appropriate way to treat our police officers?
You know, I don't think it was appropriate manner to give 10% raises in a time of depression, but I do believe that the police officers do need a raise, and they're entitled to a raise. And I said many times that we could probably work out the negotiations of it over lunch if it wasn't so complicated, because they're not that far off, and I would like to see the morale boosted amongst our law enforcement and our public safety employees. And so as mayor, I plan on working on that.
Mayor Henry, your chance for a follow-up.
Sure. My question is of Haley as well. Haley, I mentioned that the City of Fort Wayne partners with educational facilities for utilization of the Public Safety Academy. We've currently partnered with Ivy Tech. We've had some contracts with Taylor, with IPFW, with Manchester. We're now talking to the University of St. Francis about some additional classroom offerings at the Academy. Would you encourage us to go outside of the Fort Wayne, Allen County area and try to entice perhaps some colleges trying to come into Fort Wayne and utilize it as well?
You know, that building could be used for other purposes too, and thinking outside the box, we could have a high school kids going in there, or college, and they can intermingle, and because I would like to see our website a little bit more user-friendly, because it takes you 5 or 6 different places to find what's going on in Fort Wayne. So I think that if you start working with, not an ICE program, but more like a higher education for high schools, could also go over there and use it.
Thank you.
And Haley Ahrendt, do you have a question for one of your opponents about the Public Safety Academy?
No, I believe we all answered them.
All right, on to the next question, and this one will be directed to Mayor Henry first. Should the city go ahead and purchase the North River area, the area you well know, the former OmniSource property between Clinton and Harrison Streets, and whether it should or not, what would you as mayor for the next 4 years work to see that property become?
That property should ultimately become the property of the city of Fort Wayne, yes. We should work out an agreement with the Rifkin family who owns the property. A lot of people refer to it as the OmniSource property. It's not OmniSource. It's owned by a family, the Rifkin family. And they've been very, very good in talking to them about the possibility of putting together some type of package so that the city of Fort Wayne can gain ownership. And the reason that we want to gain ownership is not for the city of Fort Wayne to develop anything. We're not in the development business. The problem we have is that it's currently zoned heavy industrial, which means someone could purchase that property and put a junkyard back on that property if they wanted to, and there's nothing we can do. We need to gain control of that property to downzone it into something more acceptable to the citizens of Fort Wayne. Downzone it so they can be developed by a private developer in a way that it will enhance the corridor into the city of Fort Wayne. So the answer to your question is yes, we should get the property.
Haley Ahrendt.
I do not believe that we should purchase that piece of property, because the only thing that I think that you could do with that piece of property is create another park. And I think the last thing that the city needs is another park. And it would encourage you then to start doing river activity there. And it's been suggested that we should clean off portions of our river, but I don't think people realize the implications when you start to do that with environmental, DNR, and the cost involved in that type of project. I've seen river projects fail before, and I don't think that we, especially in today's economy, we don't have the money to just purchase a piece of property and not have a purpose for it.
Paula Hughes.
Well, I do not think that the city should purchase the North River property. We were at a fork in the road 5 years ago when we decided to put Parkview Field on the south side of downtown, just south of between Jefferson and the railroad tracks. And I think we need to continue on contiguously with that area for downtown development. Once you have something in motion that way, you need to follow through on it and make sure that that is successful. Pursuing North River right now would be too fragmented. I ran the Downtown Improvement District for 6.5 years. I know how downtown development works. I've studied it in other communities. We have, again, a lot of opportunity in downtown. Parkview Field is a fabulous facility. You know, one of the things that I've seen, a lot of people walked into Parkview Field for the first time and said, hey, am I in Fort Wayne? It doesn't feel like it. Even people that were opposed to Parkview Field couldn't believe that they were in Fort Wayne when they were in that building. They had the same reaction over 10 years ago when we built Club Soda. If you remember, and that was a private sector investment. We didn't put public dollars into that, which is why it's still successful today. People walked into Club Soda and said, hey, I can't believe I'm in Fort Wayne. Well, believe it, that is Fort Wayne, and that's our future.
Mayor Henry, you have the opportunity to ask a follow-up.
I think I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay. Haley Ahrendt, you have an opportunity.
Paula, so you're saying that Club Soda was successful because the city stayed out of getting in a partnership with the business. Is that what you said?
Is that the whole question?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thanks, Haley. What I meant was that Club Soda, as an entity, is successful in an ongoing manner because they are a private sector business. That is what works. If you want something to be self-sustaining long-term, you have to have the private sector involved. Government is lousy at investing. Just look at the nightmare we've gone through with the Harrison. 4 times it's been a go this year, and it's still not a go. The Anthony Wayne building, they announced they were doing it and started doing it the next day. That's the kind of development I want for our downtown.
And Paula Hughes, you have an opportunity to ask a follow-up as well.
Well, Mayor Henry, do you think that your plans to buy the North River property account for the Rifkin family's contribution to your campaign?
You know, Paula, campaigns are tough. I think you and Haley and I unquestionably have gone through a very, very difficult time over the past 6-9 months, in your case, a year and a half, to try to gain the position of mayor. The real issue is not our specific campaigns, but whether or not the North River property would be a good investment for the city of Fort Wayne. I continue to say that it will be, because we can purchase it or have it gifted and purchased, turn around and sell it to a private developer to make sure that the property is built to make downtown Fort Wayne even more attractive than what it is.
Thank you all. That wraps up the first part of our debate tonight. We're going to take a 1-minute break to give our candidates a chance to catch their breaths.
And when we come back, something we call our lightning round, a series of quick hit questions for each of the candidates. We'll be right back.